Hello crafty people, it's Sharon here, and I thought I'd make a new video today doing something that I promised on my last video, which was to show you a basic masking technique. So for that video I thought I'd use these nice shiny new stamps that I got from JMC Designs, and this one's called Iced Coffee, and I'm going to use the little girl here to stamp and mask her to make a background around her, and then I'm going to colour her in with my trusty Ohuhu pens and make a very simple card. So before we begin, I'll just flash in my pens that I've used and the ink pads that I'm going to use. The Ohuhu pens are from the 216 pen set, so if you've got that you'll have all of these colours. The stamp is the one that I've just shown you, and the ink pads are from Crafter's Companion, which are Ocean Blue and Anthracite in the Harmony range, but you could use any dye-based ink pad that you've got to hand. So Distress works really well, Lisa Horton's ink pad would work well, and also Lavinia ink pads, the Elements. So that's my list if you want to take a quick snapshot. And we're ready to begin. So I'm just using multi-purpose stamping card for my stamping today, and I've just cut a piece. I'm going to make this a 5x7 card. So this piece I made approximately 9.5 centimeters wide and 14.5 centimeters tall, which gives me enough room to add a little coloured frame around the edge and mount it onto my 5x7 inch card. I'm going to use my stamping platform, so I'm just grabbing that now and hoping I left enough room on my camera to flip the lid up, which I did, so that was handy. Okay, so I'm going to colour with alcohol pens. That means I need a dye-based ink for my stamping in this case, so I'm going to use a Memento ink pad in black. So just bear with me while I grab that. Wasn't quite as well prepared as I thought. So this is Memento ink in Tuxedo Black. And as per usual, I'm placing my stamp on my card where I want it. The idea is she's going to be standing in the snow. There's going to be a little sentiment up the top here which will also come off of that stamp sheet. So I'm going to close up my stamping platform and just give that a little ink up, which you won't probably see. It's going to be off screen, so bear with me. Gentle tapping all over. And this is the first time I've stamped with this particular stamp, so it would have been a good idea just to stamp it on some scrap paper first, but we are where we are, so we'll see how it goes. So I'm going to press her down, and the good thing is with the stamping platform I can of course go back and re-stamp if it doesn't come out quite how I hoped. But she's a cutie, isn't she? Let's see. She's not too bad. I'm just going to give her another quick stamp. It might be that my ink pad's getting a bit dried up as well, because I do use these a lot. There we go. So that's her all ready to stamp. Now we're ready to get onto the masking part. Now there are different kinds of masking that you can buy. They come in sheets which have a sort of acetate backing on the back that you peel off, or you can buy it in rolls like this. This one I think came from Crafter's Companion. You can buy it as a roll. This doesn't have a backing paper on it though, so what you do need to do is to cut off a piece that's a good size for your stamp. So I'm just pulling it. As you can hear, it's quite sticky. And just cut off however much you need. And the good thing about this is you get absolutely tons on these rolls. So I think in the long run these are probably better value for money, because you can just get so many stamps out of them. Now before I stamp, I'm going to take a piece of scrap paper and put my sticky mask on the top. I'm just going to work out if I've got it in the right place. There we go. And just hold with my magnets. Now with my blending, I'm going to use dye-based inks, and the blue is fairly pale, so I don't want that to smudge into my blue ink if I use the Memento again. So I'm just giving my stamp a quick wipe, and I'm going to swap to VersaFine, and it doesn't even matter what colour you use, so you know, any colour that you've got, but this is a black one. I'm going to ink up my stamp with VersaFine. That means that when I cut it out and I start my blending, as long as that ink's dry, it won't smudge into my colouring in the background, and you'll understand a bit more about that as we go along. So I'm giving this a quick press, and in this case it doesn't really matter if it's a perfect stamp or not. It can have bits missing in the middle and so on, because we're not actually interested in that anymore. We're only interested in the outer line. So now that I've got that done, I'm just going to put my platform out of the way for now. And the next thing we need to do is cut around the outline of our stamp. And what we're doing is cutting actually on the line of the stamp, not around the edge. We want to be on the line, so that if we cut outside, we'll end up with a white halo around our stamp when we finish our background. So we're going to go directly on the line, and because I've put this scrap paper underneath, it's stabilising my masking paper. It would be really hard to cut this out if it was sticking and rolling everywhere. So, you know, any old scrap paper will do that you've got. You just need something to just stabilise it. So I'm going to pause whilst I finish cutting out. Sorry, I took completely off the camera there, but hopefully you can see what I'm doing is just going around cutting the outside of the image on the black line. And I'm a bit of a slow cutter outer, so I am going to pause for a second whilst I finish this off. So I've now finished cutting out my mask, which is still attached to my bit of scrap paper on the back at the moment, and this is my leftover. Now what you can do with this is you can save these bits to use for smaller masks and literally use up every scrap. So this is much more economical than you might actually think. I'm going to put that to the side for a moment, and we'll get on to masking our original image, which is this one here. So I'm going to take my mask and gently peel it away, and this is the little fiddly bit because you've kind of got to just find somewhere to break the paper away. And typically it doesn't want to come away. But the good thing about these masks is that once you've made them, there we go, you can use them quite a few times. So all this fiddliness isn't happening all the time. Right, sorry, that's probably a bit out of focus because I needed to get close to see. But what I'm trying to do is start from a solid end, which will make the paper less likely to break. And then I'm going to gently pull away my backing paper. And there we have our mask. Now that leaves a little outline mask as well. This isn't sticky, but it's worth saving because sometimes if you just want to quickly put a rough outline around something, you can just put it down rather than sticking it down a whole mask. So you can get a bit of use out of that as well. But meanwhile, we're going to stick our mask down, and the way to do this is to find a start point that works for you, and for me that's usually at the bottom, and just find an anchor point. So you're literally sticking it on the lines, and as you start to put, you might need to reposition a few times. So that you can get it in position correctly. There we go. I noticed when I first put it down I had a little gap at the top of my boots, which was just there, so I'm sorry you can't see that, but the paper's sort of curling a bit. And now I'm just going to gently place the mask on, just picking it up and moving it if I think it's going a little bit off track. There we go. So I'm checking around the edges as I'm going, and where there are little bits, they really can move a little bit. So the little bobble on the end here, I've just sort of nudged that into place. Now I've got my mask down and we're ready to start on the background. So I'm just going to move my little bit of white paper. Apologies if there's a reflection and some shadowing. It's very dark here today, so I've had to put the lights on. So I do apologise about that, but hopefully you'll get the idea. I'm going to use, first of all, my anthracite grey, because I want to put down a bit of a ground line for her. So I've got a piece of card that I've just ripped, and as you can see it's been quite well used. I'm going to just place that down, and I want it to be above the bottom of her feet, not below. Otherwise it will look like she's floating. I want her to look like she's standing in the snow, so I'm going to actually place this snow line above her feet. And this is my anthracite ink pad, so I'm just going to use my soft brush. These I got off of Amazon. They're just oval brushes. If you put makeup brushes or oval craft brushes, you'll see something like this. And you just start off very lightly, because you can add but you can't always take away. So that's giving a very soft sort of look. I might want to go a bit darker, so I'm just going to grab a very small stencil brush. This one's from Lavinia, and I'm going to dip that in, and I'm just going to go in at the top, and because this is a smaller brush, it's just going to give a bit of a darker line, a more intense line that's going to fade out into that paler colour that I've just put in. There we go. And now you can see that we've got a graduated ground line there. So that's that one done. Get those out of the way, and it's a good idea to keep brushes for each separate colour group that you have with your ink pads, you know, for your blending, so that you don't muddy up your brushes and end up with a muddy colour. So I've got a separate one here for my blue, and I'm using the ocean blue, which is one of my favourites, and I'm just going to pick up some of that, and then starting on my mask I'm blending outwards, so that if there's going to be a blob, it's going to be on the mask and not on my main area. And again, I'm just going in and working my way, and what will happen is it will end up darker towards the middle and hopefully fade out very softly towards the edges. Hoping you can see that because it's quite subtle. Again, we're just going to take it one step at a time, do it gently, and just keep loading and loading till we get a bit more depth of colour. And what's happening is that the mask that we put down is protecting that image in the middle. And now I might want to add a little bit more texture on my image. So I have got a stencil here with little bubbles on. I'm going to place that over the top. And then I'm going to carry on blending again. Just around the edge of her. And again, I think I need to get a new ink pad. This is running out a bit, I think, but so I just need to keep adding a bit more ink. Ooh, sorry, pinged it out the way there. And there you can see now I've got a pale blue background with some darker blue spots on there. Now what I could do is add some splatter if I wanted. I could add white spots with white ink, or more use the same blue and add some darker blue, but I'm going to leave it there for now. And the next thing I'm going to do is lift off my mask. So again, I'm just starting very carefully from the bottom and pulling away. Slowly. I mean, this is quite a solid stamp, but if you've got small areas which are thin on the paper, you just need to be a bit careful and always pull from the widest area to the narrowest area, and just do it very slowly and carefully, and then that should preserve your mask for the next time you want to use it. And I'm going to just stick that on the back of my stamp bag for now, which will keep it ready for the next time. And there you can see we've got a beautifully white image in the middle and ready for colouring, and a beautiful background that goes right the way up to the edge of our stamp. If I pull that up really close, you can see it's literally up to the edges, and that's because we had it stuck down all the way around. So that is the masking technique, which is what I was going to show you today. I thought I might as well finish the card as I'm doing this, so that you get to see a bit more colouring in a finished card. So that's what we're going to do next. I am going to actually follow the colouring idea that came on the image itself, because I really like those colours. So let's do a little quick bit of colouring. So you saw the pens that I was using, so I'm just going to grab a couple and make a start. My skin, I'm going to get that out of the way first, and I'm using R080 for that, and I'm just going to quickly put in the detail. Don't really need very much at all on that because there's hardly any of her. And I'll come back to the lips with one of my pinks in a little while. And I'm just going to put some shadow using R20. And that really is quite simple. And because it's all wet, it's pretty much blending anyway. So I'll just leave that. And it doesn't really need much detail. It's just to show that that's her face. Next we'll go and do perhaps the blue, and I know what I have forgotten, to get something for the mug, but we'll come back to that later. So for the tealy blue, I'm going to start off with BG4, which is going to be my palest colour, and I'm going to colour all of her coat. And I might just zoom in a bit for this, so you can see better. So her coat, I'm going to get this tiny little bit in here, and this is her sleeve. And it's a good idea to do this pale bit first, because it gives you an idea where everything is, because you can lose track sometimes of what's what when you're colouring, especially the little tiny detail bits. So I'm actually going to just give this a coat all over, which I know I don't normally do, but on this occasion I thought, do you know what, I'm just going to do it. So there are guidelines, but there's no rules basically. You can do whatever makes you happy on the day. And today it makes me happy to just colour all of this, and I might regret that later, but you know, it's only a bit of paper. There we go. And now I'm going to go with my PB10, which is my mid colour, and I'm going to start adding a little bit of detail in there. So these are folds on her coat, and you have to think where would be the highlight, which would be the bits that are furthest forward sticking out. So we have this sort of colour here, this part here. These are all the dark areas. So I'm just roughly putting some colour in. Now I'm not sure what order I've picked up my colours in, so I'm just doing a quick test to see which one is the darkest on the side. And that PB10 that I've picked up, I think, is the darkest. So with PB9, let's just see. No, PB9 is the darkest. I'm starting to doubt myself there. So I'm going over the top with my PB9 to really add some depth of shadow. And that's starting to blend in with that mid colour. Going back to my mid colour, blending out, preserving a highlight at the top end of each fold, and then I'm going back to my BG4 and I'm going to go over the top. Actually, I'm going to go all over, quite broadly over all of it. And then I'm going back with my PB10 and I'm just blending to add a bit more colour back there. And now I'm going to go to the other side of the dress. I'm going to just darken these tiny little bits in here. As well. So I'll go back to the other bit of the dress in a second, but I don't want to forget about these. Again, working through my light and dark colours, and we'll just leave that to settle for a moment. And now we're going back to this large area, and I'm just having a little look at this for a moment and thinking what I want to do. Definitely it's going to be darker at the back here because it's going into the shadow, and the roundness of this area is going to be coming in to the light. And this one I'm doing the same, so I'm imagining that the folds are coming out and round. Again, there's no particular right or wrong. I'm imagining this is curving a little into the middle. My buttons are getting a bit messy, but I'm not going to worry too much about that at the moment. I'm going to colour those with quite a deep reddy pinky colour, so I think it'll be okay. There we go. And then I'm going to get PB9 and I'm going to come in with my shadows. And you can do a little bit of flicking as well, just to soften it. Bring a bit of pleats in. And then I'm going back to PB9, and what's going to happen is I'm probably going to, sorry, PB10, I'm going to bring this highlight in a little bit more. Okay, and back to my BG. I'm just working it because it's made quite a harsh line. PB10. Just bringing that in to soften that line a little bit. PB9, sorry, BG4 to soften out. So I'm just going backwards and forwards really. And PB9, just going to come in and reinforce some of those dark areas with some little flicks, which just hopefully will add a little bit of texture and flow. And I'm going to do the same on this one as well, leaving it so it doesn't quite blend, and giving us a skirt that's got some light and dark. Now also we've got her little stockings and the bauble on her hat, so I'm just going to quickly do those, and that's going to be the bauble. I'm going to do very roughly, so I've coloured in the base colour of BG4, and then I'm just going to dot in PB9 and PB10, so it looks like it's a fluffy ball. Going down to her little stockings, again going back to BG4, I'm going to decide which is my first stripe, which is going to be these ones, and then I'm going to complete my stripes so that I don't get out of sync with them, if that makes sense. We don't want, if we're having multicoloured stripes, we want to make sure that they are in the right order. Sorry, I can't think of the word there, but there we go. And then very simply I'm just dabbing my PB10 on the edges to create a roundness, and then you automatically get that sort of shine on the middle of her tights. So, and then I'm just using my BG4 just to drag quickly just to soften, and that's really quick and easy to do. So that's my blues out of the way. Now I'm going to go on to my pinks, reddish pinks, and we're going to adopt the same process. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a bit of colouring, and then I'm going to pause and finish so that we don't have a ginormous long video. But we've got R200, R120 and R160. So R120 being my lightest, I'm going to, should we do the hat this time? So we're going to colour all over with my light colour, and I'm just going to do the hat band at this stage. Now I'm going to come in with my R200, which is my mid colour, And the thing about these Ohuhu pens is that you can't always rely on the colour that's on the cap. So be careful to work out or do swatches of what you want to use before you commit to paper, because sometimes something with a darker cap can end up being lighter than you thought. So this is my dark one, which is R160. You can see I'm just swiping in and not going quite so far, and I could actually blend that, but it's blending by itself quite well, so I'm not going to blend between the dark and the mid, but I am just going to blend between the mid and the light to bring that out a little bit. And what that does is give an extra sort of bit of dimension. And then we'll do the same on her hat. So I'm going to colour the whole lot, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to start working in from the sides, keeping the highlight in the middle. And you can see I'm twisting around because, you know, you need to make it so that your hand is comfortable when you're colouring. So I find that moving the image around and twisting really helps. So now I'm going with my R200, and I'm thinking about where the dark areas would be. So I think there would be a shadow left by her hat band, and with this particular case everything's darker at the side as the hat goes round her head. So I'm swiping around, and then underneath it's kind of going to be from top to on the end it's going to be from top to bottom. So I've kind of got a light area going in an arc, and then I've got my dark colour. I'm doing the same thing. I'm going to take it all the way across the bottom, but I'm just swiping in from the side, not quite so far. And adding a bit around there and around there. And then I'm going to actually extend my mid colour now. Before finally going back with my palest colour in the middle, just to blend. And what I might do is leave that to dry for a minute, and then I'm going to probably just add some more of the darkness. I'm also going to take a moment to put her lip colour on. So I'm just using a random one of my darker pinks, and it happens to be the 200 in this case. I'm just filling that in. Okay, so I'm going to pause for a minute now whilst I just finish off the skirt, and then we'll have a quick, and the scarf, and we'll have a quick look at her boots and maybe her hair before we complete the card. But I'll be back with you in just a moment. So I'm back again now. I've finished colouring my red, and I have to admit that I felt like there wasn't quite enough depth of shadow with the reds that I had, so I did pick out another red which is called R8, sorry. Don't be deceived by the colour, because it looks like a real sort of tomato red. It's actually quite a dark burgundy red, so I used that just to add the tiniest bits of shadow here and there on my red areas, which just makes quite a difference. And also, whilst I was away, I picked out some olive green colours so that I can do the mug. And I'm going to just quickly put something in the mug before I do that. So I'm just going to put, there we go, some hot chocolate inside. And then I have picked G020, which is called Pale Lemon Yellow. I'm going to colour my whole mug with that, just watching those red areas. Ideally, I should have done this before I did the red, because the red can tend to bleed a little bit. So we'll just have to see how that goes. And I'm going to go around the edge of my coffee. I have got G060 and G070, and G070 is actually the mid colour. There we go. So I'm going to quickly put some of that in. I'm going to go round the edge of my mug at the top. I'm going to put some shadow where the cup handle is, and I'm going to, remembering this is sort of a spherical object, swipe in from the side. Like so. And then my G060, same thing, but not going quite so far. Just adding a little bit of darkness at the back there. And quickly with my light colour just to blend that in. Now probably again that could do with something a little bit darker. I have got a colour called G240, which is beige green. I'm just going to look for that. Got it, there we are. And I identified this just by looking at the colour swatch that I made when I first got these pens, and that's just given me a little bit of extra depth. So sometimes you can pick colours from a swatch and you think that'll be everything I need, but when you actually come to do it you realise it's not quite enough. So it's really worthwhile keeping your pens handy, keeping your swatch cards handy, so you can make decisions if you need to. Then I'm just going back in with my, you know, my range of colours once again. So that was G060, this is G070, and then we've got a slightly more rounded appearance to the cup. Let's do a piece of her hair, and for that I'm using browns, and my three browns are E240, E310 and E170. E240 is the lightest, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to colour all over the hair with that. Now what I'm going to do is something a little different here. I kind of don't want it to blend too much because I want there to be strands of hair, so I'm just going to colour the whole area and let it dry so that it won't blend so much. And this bit here is like the back of her hair there, so I'll just put that bit in. I'm going to go and do the other side the same. You can see this is all starting to come together now. And my colouring is not perfect, you know, I have gone over the lines, and you'll be able to see that even more so on this video because obviously it's larger than life, so you know that's just the way it goes. I've got a bit shaky hands, it's nearly lunchtime. So you just go with the flow. There we go. And whilst that's there like that, let's have a look at her boots, and we'll just do one. So I'm colouring the whole area. I'm going to leave a white circle in the middle, which is kind of a highlight, and I'll do the other one as well. They're only small areas, aren't they, so why not. Again, I'm leaving a white circle in the middle. Always do it a bit bigger than you think you need, because what happens is the ink will bleed into that area as well. So as you can see, those circles ended up quite tiny. I'm going to go, I think I'll go with my darkest colour next, which is our E310, and I'm going to put my shadows in. So again, these are rounded to the front, so I'm putting the shadows at the sides and inside her boots where it would be darker, and I'm going to put shadows at the bottom of her boots and where I think there's sort of a bit of shade. And then I'm going with my mid colour, which is E170, and I'm going to bring that up and around. And these are very small areas, so it doesn't take too much. I've just obliterated my highlight on there, but never mind. Okay, so now we've kind of got a shiny boot scenario, and I'm going to be careful to keep that white area in the middle because I do quite like that. And I'm just going with my lightest colour, giving a quick blend. And that's her boots pretty much done. You could go in and do that again to add more depth, but I'm not going to. I think it's okay just as it is, really. And now I'm going to go in with the hair. So I've got my mid colour, and I'm starting on the outside here, and I'm just kind of following the pattern of her hair, drawing lines, starting darker at the top because she's going to have shadow under her hat. I'm just adding little curls and flicks, not one straight line. I'm picking the pen up and putting it down again, and hopefully you can see there's a bit of something there. And now I've got my darker one, and I'm going to do the same. I'm starting at the back because I think if that goes wrong it's less noticeable. I find hair quite hard to colour, I'll be honest, so what I'm trying to do is just make it look like her hair's all wavy curly. And I think again in this situation I'm going to need a darker brown just to get some extra contrast in there. Because this is curly, I'm just really squiggling so she's got wavy curly hair. So I feel like I need a bit more, something really dark and impactful. So I'm picking up my card. I used 170. I used 310, that one there. So I think I am going to get the quite difficult actually, because those look quite dark. Have I got any other darks? Oh, here we go. Unbelievably, Y12 I think might add a little bit of extra depth, so I'm just going to go and look for that. Found it straight away. So this is Y12, and whilst I've been doing that, hopefully this has dried a little bit. So I'm going to just add some more little flicks. Don't know if that's made it better or worse, to be honest, but we're committed now, so I'm going to do it. Trying to make it not look too uniform. I think it's actually okay as it's blending out a little bit and drying. There we go. So she's all finished now, and all that's left is to mount her up on a card. So I'll be back in a second with the finished card. So here I am back with my final finished card. As you can see, I've taken a sentiment from that same stamp set, which is Warm Wishes, and stamped it at an angle so that I don't have to fall in that trap of it not being quite straight. I decided to just doodle a wibbly line around the edge of my white base card because I just think it adds a little bit of dimension. I used a fine liner pen for that, and my one happens to be a uni pin, but there are loads of different ones out there that you can use. And finally I made a mat with some card that I got from Carnation Crafts, and if you just bear with me, it's part of a multi-pack, so I'll just tell you which one that is. It's called A Christmas Eve Perfect Papers. See if I can just flash that in. There we are. And you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 colours, coordinating colours, and I think, yeah, you get 8 of each sheet. It says it right there, doesn't it? This is really solid card. It's no good for stamping on because it's glossy, but it makes beautiful mats and layers, so that's one of my go-tos. And then finally, as I mentioned, it's a 5x7 card, and I did it so that there would be quite a wider border around the image. I think that just gives a nice finishing touch, rather than it looking like it's been squashed onto the card. And I think this would make a good Christmas card or a winter birthday card, whatever suits you. So that's my final card. I hope you enjoyed this process. If you like what you see, I would love it if you'd subscribe to me. And for my next video, I'm probably going to expand on that masking process further and show how we can put stamped images one behind the other, using the same masking process. So if you're interested in that, click subscribe, hit the notify button, and you'll see as soon as my video comes up. That's all for me for now. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye!